Let's read Cicero's Pro Caelio, chapter 77. First, what happened in chapter 76 and 75? A whole set of images about the impetuosity slash the youthful exuberance of Caelius. He was like a chariot that just grazed the pole as he was going around in his enthusiasm. He's like a liquid that's bottled up and pours out all at once. He's like the herbs that promise fruit, and that's because of how fast they're growing. He's like a horse that needs to be reined in more than spurred on, and he's like the plants that in certain growth stages need to be pruned more in their youth than grafted in. So we have Caelius has just been described as if he's going to bloom with the praise of talent, more things need to be pruned for that age than grafted on. Quare, because of this, or therefore, picking up that previous thought, si qui nimium effer visse videtur. I'm gonna go with the he for videtur, but I may have to change that later in the sentence. If he seems to have boiled over too much to anyone, the he is going to change. There's going to be a subject. And that boiled over is another kind of image. In this case, it's back to liquid again, but this one is boiling or bubbling liquid. If he seems to have, or something seems to have boiled over too much to anyone, so that dative of reference in anyone's opinion, huius, well in suscipiendis, well in gerendis, inimicitis vis, feroctas pertinacia. And huios is of this man, so this man's, it's going to describe the subject. This man's vis ferocitas or pertinacia, his violence, I guess, it is also the term for political violence, but here he's just going for like his forcefulness, his ferocity, his pertinacity, his stubbornness. If his force, ferocity, and pertinacity of this man seems to anyone to have boiled over too much. And then the well bit goes together, either in taking up or in bearing hostilities. So his willingness to just go at it at his enemies. If that seems to have boiled over too much to anyone, si quem etiam minimorum aliquid offended. If even the something of the tiniest of these things offends anyone. So the si quem is like si quis at the very chapter 1, if anyone. If you want to preserve more word order and make it all passive while preserving the meaning, you say if anyone is even the least bit offended by any of these things. That's less literal, but gets the point. Literally, if anything of the tiniest of these offends anyone, even if purpurae genus, si amicorum catervae, si splendor, si nitor, iam ista deferent, iam aetas omnia, iam res, iam dies mitigarit. If his purpurae genus, his kind of purple, that would be like his shade of purple, the color of his purple. And since he's of rank, he's got a purple stripe on his toga, and so like if it's just a bit too bright, that purple, if his shade of purple, if his crowd of friends, catera amicorum is not quite the nicest phrase. Crowd of friends. If his splendor, it's kind of like his shininess or his splendidness. If his splendor, if his Nitor, another word for shininess. I'm going to say sheen. If it's splendor, if it's sheen, have offended anyone. That's the verb has been implied. If his shade of purple, if his crowd of friends, if his splendor, if his sheen have offended anyone, now those things, dismissive istar, those things over there, now those things will have boiled down. De verwerent is the opposite of effervisse. And they have the ferv root in the middle of it, which really picks up. It's a bit hard to express that in English, but the boil up and boil down. I guess you could say settle down. Those things will have settled down. It's also used for things, not just things stop boiling, but also things, the wine clarifying, which is part of how you mature wine. You let it sit for a while, all the particles go down, it becomes less viscid, it off gases, all of that. Those things will now have settled down. And then yam you could also interpret as soon. Yam especially is like now, as in it's right on the verge of happening. So soon those things will have settled down. Soon the age, soon the circumstances, soon the days will have softened everything. Omnia, neuter plural, accusative, everything. Conservatigitur rei publicae judices, quivem bonarum atium, bonarum partium, bonorum virorum. I only just noticed how it kind of rhymes. Preserve, therefore, for the Republic, O judges. And this one I'm going to translate super literally. A citizen of good arts, a citizen of good political parties, and a citizen of good men. Now we have a note from the commentator that goes into this triple phrase, which people have had trouble translating in the past. While the first two genitives, that's bonarum artium and bonarum partium, they depend on quivem, and they can be genitives of quality. So that's like a man of good arts, i.e. a very talented man. Bonorum virorum, a man of good men, a citizen of good men, is more difficult to construe. Austin, who is a famous commentator, translates the three as a citizen of virtuous principles, a loyal citizen, a constitutional citizen, even though bonorum virorum cannot be explained as genitive of quality. And I don't know where Austin gets constitutional from. Oops. Where does Austin get constitutional from? He's got good friends, good men. I feel like that's such a stretch, but you can follow Austin because I guess he has more authority than me. Emendations have been suggested. That means people have said it's wrong. The scribes who copied these throughout the centuries have have slipped up in this bit. Is too weird. Emendations are basically when someone says, I think that the original was really this if we change a few letters or change a word, and they're not basing it necessarily, they're kind of conjecturing. But Austin believes that the parallel structure is deliberate and the text should not be changed. I would say on the basis of the sound of it, it probably, I don't know, it sounds too good. Quivem bonarum artium, bonarum partium, bonorum virorum. Unless you reckon that sounds too cheesy. He reckons that it's a deliberate thing and shouldn't be changed. Therefore, bonorum virorum is a logical extension of bonarum partium, and the phrase is intelligible and justifiable when fused with its whole context. I would agree with Austin that it sort of makes sense in context. It's just awkward to try to render it somehow in English. You can use Austen's phrasing if you want. Promitto hoc vobis et re publicae spondeo. First person singular verbs. Ooh, he's getting personal here. I promise this to you, and I pledge to the Republic. Si modo nos ipsi rei publicae satisfecimus. I'm gonna go literally. If and then motto is kind of like a soft word that's like if only or if in any way. We ourselves, going literally, have done enough or have made satisfaction for the Republic. We ourselves, the commentator reckons this is just Cicero saying, if I have given satisfaction to the Republic, if I have been a patriotic and loyal citizen who has done enough and saved my country. But to be honest, nos ipsi, who's on this team? That's on the defense team is Crassus and Caelius and Cicero. We makes total sense when referring to these three guys. They're all prominent men, and Caelius is a up and coming young man. I guess it's only the fact that the previous verbs were singular first persons. I mean, this one's first person plural to agree with nos, but yeah, choose whether you want it to be we or I, depending on how you think. Is it Cicero saying, if we've done enough for the Republic ourselves, I promise you this? Or is it, if I've done enough for the Republic, I promise you this? Nunc a nostris rationibus seiunctum fore. He never, I promise that, and that, after a verb of speaking, expect accusative infinitive, that hunc, this man, never, fore will be, seiunctum, opposite of joined, separated, nostris rationibus. Nostris agrees with rationibus, from our way of thinking. Ratio is kind of like a system of thought, from our way of thinking. So I promise you that this man will never be separated from our mode of thinking. Quod cum fretus nostra familiaritate promitto, dum quod durissimis sipse legibus iam obligavit. Cum and tum. That is what goes together here. Cum tum means both and or at the same time at that very moment. Quod. Fretus nostra. Like quod, we don't know yet when translating it for the first time whether it means because or this. I'm inclined to think of it as like this when I see quod cum together, but then I'm also expecting cum to be meaning when or something. Promitto, however, needs an accusative object. I promise this. So that's how it ends up being taken. I promise this. Fretus, relying. And then, oh yeah, you could also say cum tum, you can put in here already. Both relying on our familiarity. Both relying on my acquaintance with Caelius, my knowing his character. Tum, and at the same time, or both and, quod, obligavit already is going to take a object, so here it's another thing. Quod is really hard to translate, but here it's going to mean because, and because he has obligated, he is bound himself. And then ipse is like describing the subject. He himself, Caelius, has bound himself, accusative object, now with the harshest superlative, isimis, harshest of laws. So that whole thing together, all of that together, I promise that he's never going to be separated from our way of thinking. I promise this, both relying on our close acquaintance and because he himself has bound himself now with the harshest laws.